Keep this.
And I don't know how y'all gonna approve that.
I don't know.
Where's the other one? Cause that was for the executive. Where's the regular? Oh, he just didn't say it.
Somebody paper start flying on.
Oh, you didn't sign it.
I didn't sign it. We don't somebody can sign.
You?
Sound man too.
Okay.
Everything, man.
You wear a lot of hats, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Joe was saying he wanted one. Oops. She wanted one.
What if I cut it off? What do I need here? People that knew. I'm gonna cut it off.
This is for January, right?
February.
Okay, I'm sorry.
How are you doing? You all right?
Hello, sir.
You all right?
I am.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Hello. Good to see you.
Hey, Anthony, how you doing?
Okay.
Hit it twice.
Okay. Okay.
I think once we get an understanding what method, like NADA, it looks like there's some on NADA and some Kelly Blue Book. And that could be because they couldn't find that particular, like if it was a 70 model, or
Okay.
they would have to go to a different method, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
By the way, this line is brought up the issue since we weren't present on the board here
It's George.
Yeah, yes, sir.
No.
How we gonna handle that? How we gonna handle this?
I mean, I don't know, she just.
Don't say okay, because your name.
I can't prove it independently. I don't have one.
I don't think you're supposed to.
Secretary.
That matters, so it won't be brief. It is what it is.
Hey.
We got a meeting last month. We came in. We started it. So.
I just need to make a note for the record. Okay. That was December.
So you just have to say on the agenda is to approve the minutes, but we can't.
Because it's on the.
Want
Okay. Okay.
to the next one.
Sounds good.
Lynette. Lynette. Did I put on that date, that payroll, 5 or 6? The payroll thing, I put 5 or 6. I think I put, correct that one. I think I put 5. I told her I think I put 5. Date of 6, right? I thought I did that. Thank you. Four o'clock. Welcome everyone to the February 6, 2025 meeting of the Jones County Board of Tax Assessors. We see we have a quorum. We see we have 3 new members. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as presented. The chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
I have a second to that motion.
Second.
Have been properly moved and second to approve the agenda for this afternoon's meeting. Chair asks, call for the order. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, likewise. The next item on the agenda is election of the chair for the 2025 year. Chair will entertain any nominations.
I would like to nominate Tim Andrews to remain as the chair.
I'd like to make the motion for Lee Ross Stanford.
Any more nominations? Chair calls for the close of the nominations. We have 2 persons nominated. We'll take each person separately. I guess I can call my own name. Is that in order?
That's fine.
All right. All those in favor of selecting myself, Tim Andrews, as the new the chair for the 2025 year. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Can I ask you something?
I'm sorry.
Maybe a question
Sure.
that I would just, since Ms. Brody is here. In nominating the chair, can its chairperson be, can a board member be the chairperson prior to training?
Yes,
Okay. So
They're on the
would not-
board.
They would not have to go through training in order to.
they're a board member, so they can vote and lead the meeting, yes.
Okay.
I mean, whoever's the chairperson always has me available. I mean, if any of y'all have questions, I'm Ashley Brody, I'm the county attorney. I'm available if you have any questions about leading the meeting or motions or anything of that nature.
Point of order. I apologize. I did not recognize Ms. Brody at the meeting.
Excuse me, I
She's
was
at the
coming in
meeting, so let the records reflect.
minutes late.
The attorney representing the Board of Assessors is present. Moving on to the election of the chair. All those in favor of electing Tim Andrews as the chair, please show it by sign of raising your hand. We have 1 and two. I will go for myself. And all those in favor of Lee Stanford, show by raising your hand. It's 3-2. Chair rules that Lee Stanford will be the chair for the 2025 year. Chair yields to the new chair.
The next item on the agenda is the election of the new secretary. I believe the candidates who are qualified were asked to be present. Can we see who all? I'm sorry, I can't see. They're back and back. Ms. Adams, Mr.
Goodman, and then Tommy right there on the front.
Those who wish to be considered, can you let us know? Is there anyone else that wishes to be considered? Okay.
Could I interject one thing for clarity?
Yes, sir.
Up until about 3 months ago, I think the Jones County Board of Tax Assessors always operated not knowledgeably in error, but because of information that was brought to light by Mr. George and reinforced with the review by the peer committee, the secretary has to be a appraiser. So I just want to bring that a point of order that even previous boards had not acknowledged that. We have been made aware, and it was corrected last year at the end of the quarter, and so that's how we got to that. Okay.
And so any of your candidates who wish to be considered, we just need to make sure they meet that qualification.
Right. Did you raise your hand? I'm sorry, what's your name?
Tommy Crowley.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we nominate Kim for the secretary.
I second.
I make a motion that we nominate for secretary. Continue.
I'm sorry, to continue?
He's doing it. He did it the end of the year. So he was the outgoing
Okay.
Secretary.
secretary.
The first time we've had a tax assessor, personnel properly in that space. Linnell was doing it, she was doing a stellar job. However, the law doesn't provide for her to do it. Okay.
So we have a motion and a second for Ms. Kim and a motion for.
And a second for Mr. Tommy.
Okay. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of Ms. Kim Adams as the 2025 secretary, raise your hand. All of those in favor for Mr. Tommy, please raise your hand. 3-2 vote, so Ms. Kim Adams will be the secretary for 2025. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 5th, 2024 meeting. Ms. Brody, we did have the question of the fact we weren't on the board at the time, if that's an issue for approval of those minutes by the new members.
Well, you don't have enough board members who were on the board. I don't know that I've ever ran into that situation previously. I'll actually ask a colleague, Mr. Nolan, have you ever in a Bibb County meeting run into that? We don't have enough to approve a December minutes, enough board members to be a quorum because only 2 are here that were here at that time.
I've never had that happen.
haven't either.
But I do believe that minutes can be approved with just no objection to
Yeah.
the minutes if it's brought up. Not with every book on minutes. I
Right.
can't do that.
I think that's the only way we can do it because we simply don't have enough board members from that time. So I think one of you all
Yeah.
would need to make the motion since you were here.
I move we accept the minutes as written of the December 5th, 2024 meeting for approval.
Okay, so we can have a vote, please. All those in favor? Thank you.
And there any objections?
Any objections to
Okay.
approval of minutes? Ms. Brody, next on the agenda, we did have you, and we appreciate your presence and would ask that you continue to be present at the board meetings, especially since the majority is new and we'll be learning. I don't know if we need to make a motion for that or not and vote on that, but
You do not, and it's at 4 o'clock and I'm in trial a lot, but most every meeting that should not be a problem.
at least for the immediacy, so.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, presentation of the board status and state performance review by Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, and I have some packets of information for each of you. I'm afraid that some of it may be duplicative of things that you already have. But,
Oh, this all of it?
yes, sir.
You want me to read this?
No, sir. No, sir. Yes, eventually.
All
I
right.
think you've seen all of it.
Give me the cliff notes.
Yes.
I trust you to interpret this.
This side.
Thank you. You don't have to have a copy of it.
Okay, so obviously I've just handed you a bunch of things that no one could be expected to read right now. I do think most of it are things that you all have already seen. I want to begin by just clarifying my role, why I'm here, what I've been hired to do. You all know I'm not the county attorney. The county attorney is sitting here. I've been retained by the Board of Commissioners to oversee the removal process of 2 members of this board. And at the time, there were 2 of the 3 members that were on the board at the end of the year. I'm not here to criticize or vilify anyone. I think I've been asked to come just update this board on what's going on and what is going to occur going forward. But my role as representing the Board of Commissioners means there's a reason why Ms. Brody can't do this, I guess is the best way to describe it, because she represents the county, right? So she represents the Board of Commissioners, she represents this board. And in this particular instance, we have a situation where the Board of Commissioners is in a position that is adverse to 2 members of this board, which means that Ms. Brody can't do it, right? So that's why I've been, so what that also means is that I cannot represent you all, right? So anything that I say is just in my capacity as representing the Board of Commissioners and being here on their behalf to answer questions and to make any presentation that y'all want. So I just want to be clear about that. I think you all probably understand it, but I just, think that needs to be set out in the beginning. So just to give a recap, and this is all a matter of public record, when I was brought on to handle this matter, the first thing I did was write a letter on December 5th, 2024, to, at that time, what were the 3 remaining members of the Board of Commissioners. And I did that, and the letter set forth, it was at the direction of the board, the letter set forth the grounds the Board of Commissioners was seeking to remove the remaining members at that time, and the process that would take place. There was a second letter that was sent at the end of December to follow up because there was some belief that the board members had not actually seen the letter or read the letter. So I did that, and those letters are in the packet. And the next thing that happened was there was a hearing on January the 7th in front of the Board of Commissioners here in this room. And at the conclusion of that hearing, Mr. Andrews was present. He spoke on his behalf. And at the conclusion of that hearing, the Board of Commissioners voted to remove what was then the 2 remaining commissioners because Ms. Hogan had rolled off. What were then the 2 remaining Board of Tax Assessor members, apologize. And the vote was, there was a vote to remove them subject to their right to have a hearing in front of a Superior Court judge. Right? That's in the law. I've also included that statute there. It's OCGA 48-5-295, and at subsection B, it's highlighted. And you'll see there in the middle the role of the Superior Court is to provide recommendations. So no one can be removed from the Board of Tax Assessors by the Board of Commissioners without having first had a hearing in front of a Superior Court judge and without a judge having weighed in with a recommendation. The judge doesn't make the decision. Only the Board of Commissioners can make the decision, but they have to do it after receiving the recommendation from the Superior Court judge. So that hearing has not taken place yet. On February 3rd, I filed a petition asking for a hearing. And prior to that, on January the 13th, both Ms. Morgan and Mr. Andrews had filed appropriately request for a hearing in front of a Superior Court judge, as they have the legal right to do. And they are members of this board because no hearing has been held and no vote has been taken after having received the recommendations of the Superior Court judge. Again, the hearing hasn't taken place yet. It hasn't been scheduled yet, to my knowledge. So once that does happen, it will be a public hearing in the Superior Court, and the court will provide a recommendation as per the statute I just handed up. And until that time, Mr. Andrews and Ms. Morgan are members of this board, and and no decision has been made, so nothing is to say they won't be members of the board going forward. That all remains to be seen. Just to give, and I left out a very important step, right, in the end, sort of towards the end of January, I think on the 21st, we received the performance review board report. And I think you've all seen it. If not, it's attached to the petition. You have it there. It's very long. I'm not an appraiser. I'm not a representative of the Department of Revenue or anything like that. But I've reviewed the report as anyone else would. Excuse me. We'll grab my water. And what the report sets forth are a number of violations or instances of non-compliance with the law on behalf of the Board of Tax Assessors over the last whatever time period, the last year or two. And some of those were already in the letter I submitted. For example, the sales ratio study was out of compliance for tax years 2022 and 2023. Some others were not. There are a lot of, some of them are violations or not complying with the law, and some of them are recommendations, right? And it's kind of hard to sometimes to parse through what's what. But in regard to this proceeding, when I filed the petition, we raised the same grounds that we had before, right? And also the grounds that were in the Performance Review Board's report. And I think the nature of this proceeding, the removal proceeding, is important because the Board of Commissioners has some authority here, right? But what they don't have the authority to do is manage the operation of the Board of Tax Assessors. So you all do that. The Board of Tax Assessors does that. And the Board of Tax Assessors manages the office, manages the process of hiring and firing the staff, the appraisers, and manage just everything about it. What the Board of Commissioners can do is remove members of the Board of Tax Assessors. That's it. And they have to have a cause to do so. And the cause would be the previously talked about instances of not complying with the law. So what the commissioners, and I can only go by their vote, right? Because I can't sit here and tell you that every commissioner on the Board of Commissioners thinks the exact same thing. But their vote, to me, indicates that not that any specific member of the Board of Tax Assessors was doing anything specifically, right? That is specifically responsible for a violation. It's just the only way the Board of Commissioners has to hold the board accountable for these issues. So what the vote says to me is that there have been all these instances of not complying with the law and nothing was being done about it, so they took a vote to remove the board as it existed at that time. And that's where we are. To remove board, you have to show a violation of the law. There are several. It can be as simple as not getting the digest in on time. There are cases that have upheld that as being the reason. And they say, as I said the last time I was out here, that something like that does not require removal, but it does give the board discretion to remove. And that's the position the board's taken now. Is the Board of Commissioners, are the board members relying solely on failure to get the digest in time in 2023? No, of course not. But that is a violation that will, at least based on previous precedent, allow for removal. So that's what I wanted to do, is come tell y'all what's going on and where we are. And I'm happy to answer questions or provide anything I can provide.
Any questions?
Could I ask a question, please?
Sure.
So this is to Ms. Brody. So we just appointed or requested you be present at our hearings to represent the Board of Tax Assessors, correct? And Mr. Nolan just advised us that the action that the commissioners took was directed towards the Board of Tax Assessors. Is that correct? Not one individual. Is that correct?
At the time, it was the 3 remaining members. So at this time, it's only towards the two members that were members at that time, not
But
the
at the
newly
time,
appointed.
it was directed towards the board, the remaining board of tax assessors,
Towards Ms. Hogan, Ms. Morgan, and yourself.
which was the board, correct?
Yes, sir.
So my question is one of clarity. Ms. Broder, do you have to recuse yourself from representing us for conflict of interest?
I can't represent the Board of Commissioners against you all. I can't represent you all against the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so-
I'm not involved in this at all.
So the action we took on asking that the attorney be present, and now
For
we
your
don't
meetings.
have, at the meetings, and now we don't have an attorney, and since, I don't think, should I say we're in an arbitrary situation with the Board of Commissioners?
An adverse?
Adverse?
I don't think the Board of Tax Assessors is. I think there has been action taken to remove 2 members
I
of this board.
understand. I'm just
and
looking
yes, it's
for,
adverse.
who do I direct a question relative to a legal
Right.
point to support me as a board member that does not have a conflict? And if I don't have a legal representative, and this is the main of my question, are we entitled to that? And this is asking you, representing Board of Commissioners.
And I'm afraid I can't give this board legal advice. I don't believe, from my standpoint, I don't believe that in this type of proceeding that there's a right to counsel provided. There's a right to counsel, right? I mean, you always have a right to counsel, but as far as provided by the county, I don't see that. But again, I'm not in a position to be giving legal advice.
But let me ask one other thing. So during your presentation, you said some things may have been done, did you use the word legally or illegally, or not in?
In violation of the
In
law.
violation.
And non-compliance.
Non-compliance.
Yes, sir.
So that's the area that I need clarity on, because if we did something in violation, then we are not in keeping with the requirements of the law. And if that's what we're being accused of, then I assume, I can't write a brief like this, that we should have legal counsel to direct us in a superior court of law in an inquiry to represent us.
I don't make that determination.
Well, I'm gonna try to make that determination, because you're well more versed than I am in a court of law and superior court. That's the area where your expertise is.
Yes, sir.
And I'm totally ignorant of that process. So I'm gonna ask the chair, would it be, in your opinion, or board members, and since you aren't included in this action against the commissioners, maybe I just need to talk to myself, or Ms. Morgan. I think we need to have proper representation if Superior Court judge calls us in his chambers. And I don't have the proper education and knowledge to debate or discuss the issue intelligently to represent myself.
And if I can interject,
Yes, ma'am.
this was not anything that we did on our own. We were board members. They just got here. So I know that's not a question for you, since you're representing the commissioners, but that is a question for somebody. Because we should have legal representation, and we should not have to pay for that on our own, because we're board members. And as of December, it was 3 of us. As of January, there were 2 of us. As of 2 weeks ago, there were 2 of us. So we deserve legal representation. I know that you're not in a position to answer that, because you're representing the commissioners who are against us. But somebody needs to answer that question. And I don't know who to put it forth to, but somebody does.
I think it's a legal question about right to county provided counsel as opposed to having a right to counsel, which of course everyone.
No. There's no question about having counsel. It's definitely provided counsel, because it truly will not come out of my pocket.
Well, I don't get to make that
I
decision.
know,
This
that's
board
why I
can.
said,
I know
that's
you
why I
did.
said
I
from
know
the
you did.
beginning, I know
you
that's
did.
not a question for you, sir.
I know you did.
But that is a question for somebody.
Well, may I answer, since Mr. Andrews did ask? I think it exceeds the scope of this board's authority of the discussion. We are not authorized, so I don't know that debating it or talking about it, I understand it. I deal with it every day. I think that's something that needs to be addressed through either Superior Court or with the county in general, but outside of this meeting. I mean, we're clearly not authorized to vote on or approve counsel for individuals.
I wasn't asking. We weren't, that's not what we were asking.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah, this
Mr.
is a combo.
Andrews
Yeah, well-
asked that.
Well,
so-
this is my concern, and I'm not speaking for myself as an individual. If the board that was in existence when these errors were made, then are the actions of that board in default? And could they be nullified because of default? So I'm asking, not necessarily for myself, but for the performance and the legality of the county going forward, if there's been something that was done that could possibly be, removed because of default. And that's all I'm asking.
And I'm not sure I understand the question. Would it be because there's a new board now?
No.
And is that the?
No, the question is, if there are items in which we were in default,
Okay.
we being the board, when it was 4, 3, or 2,
Okay.
are the actions that board took in default also?
I don't know that they're in default. I think the matter is whether the board was in compliance with the law, and I think that gets very nuanced, right? Because I know that you all don't do the appraisals yourself, and you all don't do manage oversee the process yourself, but the law requires that this board manage the people and manage that process and ensure compliance with the law. And failure to do so can result in removal under the
understand.
law. And that's really my
Okay.
position, and I don't, and I think it's, the Performance Review Board report came out after we'd begun this process, but it echoed some of the things that we had already brought up.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
the performance review report, is that public record?
I believe it should be, yes. I don't see any reason why it's not a public record.
It's the commissioner's office report or the tax?
Oh,
officer's
who
report?
maintains that record? Gosh, somebody at the county. Whoever has it would be required to maintain it. And it really depends on how the Open Records Act, system is set up here. But I think if anyone asked for it from the county, I'm not aware that it being anything other than a public record.
So it's not posted anywhere, but if someone wanted to see it, they have the right to see it? Is that
Right, and I would assume they also ask the Department of Revenue for it,
Okay.
or it is there's nothing that is privileged about it, to my knowledge.
I agree.
So it would have been a open records request made by an organization or newspaper, or something should be on record, correct?
Right, if someone has asked for it, I don't know that anybody has.
Well, I'm just asking,
Yes, sir. Yes.
if a news reporter reports the findings, then hopefully there's some documentation where that request was made. Unless it was just,
Perhaps, I mean, it's a public record, it could be done through an open records request, or it could be posted somewhere, released, I'm not sure if anybody has.
I was just
reports
asking
about
her
it.
question
Oh, I'm
on
sorry.
how you access, this document. Was it for public access or public record or in the,
Oh, how did I get it?
I'm
Oh,
just saying for clarity. Is that your question?
No, he answered it. My question was simply, is this a privileged document or is it public record? Whether or not it's posted somewhere like other reports are. I mean, there's reports all over the county websites. I just simply was just asking if it was public record.
And to piggyback on, my
Yes.
question was, I've seen I don't take the newspaper, but I've seen a newspaper article that directly addressed components of this report. And unfortunately, the news reporter was in possession before I got possession of it. And it involved, myself. My name's in there. So I was curious how that situation occurred, but maybe curiosity killed a cat.
Any other questions for Mr. Nolan?
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it, and I suppose that's it for me. If I may be
Thank you.
excused.
Thank you, Mr. Noel.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Good seeing you again.
Hey,
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
Can I make a motion to
Yes.
bring Kim up here?
Yes, please. I don't think we need a motion for that. I think she just needs to join us.
Kim, do you want to come up here and join us?
We can have her sit up here, can't we?
Yeah, you can have her sit wherever you want.
She needs to be instructed if she has any questions about taking the
Be a little bit
minutes to
easier for
reach
you
out
here.
to Shane Wagner with the county clerk. What about this?
For clarity, let me just say this, the meetings are recorded right here, and then they're transcribed. So I don't know if a person's gotta really hear it because it's being recorded.
That's what
And then the
policy
minutes
says.
are being transcribed from the recording.
Well, the policies say that that's supposed to be in place. a
What's that?
secretary.
I didn't understand what you
The
said.
policies for this board says that there's supposed to be appointed a secretary.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I was just making you aware. You said you wanted her on the desk so
Yeah.
she could hear,
Right.
but I didn't know whether you was aware that it's being recorded.
Yes, sir, we
Oh,
are.
yeah.
And then the minutes are being transcribed off of the recording.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Ms. Adams, for clarity, Ms. Brody brought up, I know you've served as the secretary for the board in the past, but
Yes.
Ms. Wagner can answer any questions you have too,
I
as
appreciate
far
it.
as completing the minutes.
I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, we have Mr. Anthony George, Chief Appraiser, for the presentation and discussion of the 2024 peer review report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So when the peer report came out, January 20th, did a deep dive into it and went through it page by page several times. What you have there is what I did for each one of you. I also did this for the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday. Okay? Painstakingly, took me a lot of time to do this, but it was necessary. What you see here are different colors, different strips. The green strips represent things that were completed and done prior to this report coming out. It's about 80% of this report. Now, this report is recommendations. Let's be clear. It's recommendations to give us better ways to operate. That's how it's framed. Recommendations. Okay? Recommendations. The green, 80% of things that have been done prior to this report coming out. The last 7 or 8 months, we've been diligently working on correcting certain things that we saw needed to be corrected. The orange ones, which represent about 6%, are things that were completed after the report came out. Okay? The teal ones are the things represent maybe about 14%, represent about things that we need to work on. Okay? Let me put all this in context. In 2023, late 2022, we lost half of our appraisal staff from retirement. Half. Okay? Well, we had to pivot and still get the work done. Okay? And let me just say, I'm an optimistic person. I look at things things that were done correctly and wins. Let me explain to you what happened since I've been here, and especially in 2022 and 2023, when we lost half of our appraisal staff. Our assessment notices every year went out on time. Personal property notices went out on time every year. Okay? Our digest was submitted on time, and I know in here it says 2023 wasn't submitted on time, and Mr. Nolan alluded to that. Well, let me tell you, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. And I confirmed that with the tax commissioner, because I'm gonna tell you, ever since I've been here for 8 years, we have never, ever been late submitting a tax digest. You don't take my word for it, ask him. Okay, because when I saw it, I asked him. I said, what is this? He said, that's wrong. That's not correct. Okay? So I want to be clear about that. Okay? We've never, ever been late. And we did this in 2023 with half of our appraisal and technical staff missing. Okay? We got Tommy Lee middle of the year in 2023. Took them several months to get up to speed. But once again, our digest was submitted on time, our digest was approved, so that the tax commissioner can bill for property taxes, so that the schools can get their money too. Okay? All those things happen on time, just like any other year. But you need to understand that that was a very difficult year, because the remaining staff, especially the remaining appraisal staff, had to do 2 and 3 other jobs. Now, this report also says that we're still 2 appraisals short. That's what this report says. We're still 2 appraisals short. During the last 7 to 8 months, we've regraded about 500 properties that we needed to regrade. Okay? All of that's been corrected prior to this report coming out. Okay? 80% of the recommendations have already been taken care of and done by our office. That's significant. There's some things in here, recommendations, of course, we need to work on, and we need to, get the staff up to speed on some things, because with that change in 2023, individuals went to new positions that they weren't very much familiar with, okay? So they were kind of doing their new positions plus their old. But that's our reality. We weren't going to cry about it and not do our job. But the digest got approved on time, notices went out on time, no collection order, no consent judgment from the Department of Revenue. That's big. That's big. The digest being approved is the biggest thing we do every year. You need to know that, new assessors, because it allows the tax commissioner to bill for property taxes. That you don't have to go stand in front of a judge and say, Judge, our digest is not compliant. We need to collect for taxes. Then you can only bill at 85%. So you need to understand, none of that happened. None of it. Okay? So that's very important. I'm going to pivot into the countywide revaluation because it applies to this. I know we have an agenda item, but I don't want to repeat myself twice, so I'm going to talk about that also. Okay? Tuesday night, Board of Commissioners passed support funding for countywide revaluation, but they wanted it to come from the Board of Assessors to get the ball rolling. I got up and I spoke to them and said, that's a great idea that we have a countywide revaluation. And here's the reason. The last countywide revaluation in Jones County was 2007. Okay? Maybe all of you remember what happened in 2007 and 2008. It was the downturn of the market. The housing market crashed. Meaning, the cost tables, the schedules that were put in our computer assistant mass appraisal system were put in at a very low number in 2007. And since 2007, prices of course increased significantly. So it's 18 years since the last revaluation. Usually you should have a revaluation between 15 and 20 years. So this is right in that number. Okay? And the reason is because you have to get those schedules and tables, and we got over 3,000 of them in our system. You have to get them up to current market value. And how revaluations are done, and let me just say, revaluations are normal in our business. They're very normal. Okay? Very normal. But usually an outside company comes in to do that revaluation. It's really very never done in-house. Even the Metro North counties who have 150, 160 employees don't do in-house revaluations. It's always someone outside is hired, and there are different components to that revaluation. There's maintenance after, there's appeals that they can also represent the county in doing that revaluation. So there are different things. But yes, it's needed, and I knew this probably 8 months ago based on what I was seeing. Okay, so it's very much needed, needs to be done, okay, and that's going to be my statement for number 11. I'm not going to repeat it, but I think that professionally it should be done because it's only going to bring cost tables up to market value where they should be. And it's been 18 years, and it needs to be done. It needs to be done. Okay? But I wanted to give you that to show you, to physically show you. And as I said, I gave the Board of Commissioners the same ones with the same strips on them on Tuesday night. Okay? To explain to you that we were working on most of these recommendations even when the peer review came in here in October. We've been working. Okay? And please remember, those are recommendations. Okay? That's how they're framed. Recommendations. Okay? But also keep in mind, and I'll say it one more time, that our digest was approved on time. Our digest was submitted on time. It's been submitted every year on time since I've been here. Tax Commissioner told me he never had an on-time digest until I came, for 20 years. Okay? So, our notices went out, our notices came back, our appeals were done. We didn't have any Superior Court appeals, which is important, So keep those things in mind, that those things were accomplished. Also not having half of our appraisal staff for that year. Okay? All right? That's all I have on this, but I wanted to give that to you.
I'm sorry,
Well- Sure.
before we pivot to something
Sure.
else, is that all you have as far as the presentation on the report? Because I'm certain we have questions, so if you have something else to present about the report, please go ahead. If not, I'd
No, I'll-
rather let's go ahead and ask questions before we go to something else.
Sure. I'm just going to say that there are a couple other things in this report that weren't quite accurate. It said we didn't, page 39, recommendation to send out sales questionnaires. Well, we've been sending out sales questionnaires since 2017, and I have one here from 2020, so I don't know why that was in there, because we've been doing that. Okay? So, said to do a 3-year physical review of all parcels. Well, from 2020 to 2023, we did that. We did that.
Can I say something? Lee?
Sure. If you're,
I don't think that that has been done since 2017.
What?
The door-to-door,
No, I said
Review.
since 2020.
but it hasn't been done since 2017. The review door-to-door.
Okay.
can I clarify? I understood your email and then your comment to be, and I'm just looking at my notes, that y'all have performed a 3-year review in total between 2020 and 2023. In other words, is that what you're saying, that the office has gone to every home on a cycle in Jones County for an on-site review between 2020 and 2023?
That's correct.
So I'm hearing that that's not true, and you just said okay. What is the response to that? Who's done that? Where's the record of that?
Bill Goodman did it.
I'm sorry?
Bill Goodman. Bill, is that an accurate statement or not?
I've done one complete review from 2014, finished it in July 2016. We have not done a full, complete review since then.
All I know is he was printing out property record cards going out in the field during that time. And that's what his responsibility was, to do that. So I've seen that, so.
So then to clarify regarding this particular matter, you represented that it's been done. Now that we're clarified, now we're at the place where Mr. Goodman was charged or tasked with doing that. You believed that he had done that. And he said,
Yeah, well, I saw him in the field printing those property record cards going in the field during those years.
so then I'm hearing you say Mr. Goodman hadn't done his job, what he was tasked to do, and
As far as I'm
3 years?
concerned, he was doing his job, one of his responsibilities.
Could I interject something?
certainly.
I thought that the questions were directed to the peer review, not employees doing work. I mean, I'm a little lost. Are we doing employee performance reviews, or are we looking at the peer review?
I certainly.
Well,
had-
it was a statement that he said that they had been being done between those years.
Okay, so I didn't know the floor was open to questions from the board. I'm sorry, I missed that from the chair.
She asked if she may ask a question.
Yeah,
And
but
that
I thought
question-
you were asking originally, had he finished his presentation? And now we're
I'm
open
sorry, I
to
misspoke.
assessors can ask questions? Is that the
Point of
order?
order. No, let's please
Okay.
finish. Go ahead. Excuse us.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is what Bill Goodman was tasked with, and this is what I saw Bill Goodman doing.
Can I ask a question?
We'll wait until you, are you
That's
going to
my
upset
answer.
Mr. Andrews?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to know, who does he report to?
Me?
So aren't you his manager?
Yeah.
I mean, so you should be following up behind him and know that this job's been
Well,
completed.
that's why I made the statement.
Okay. I'm just
Okay, so
clarifying.
now, Ms. Chairman, now we talking about the peer review, we talking about performance again? I'm a little
I
lost.
think, Mr. Andrews, to clarify that, we're talking about the review, but in asking about the review and the information that was given to us by Mr. George, he is the one, in fact, who turned around and addressed it to his employee, who said, this is who did it, and he's who's doing it, and there's a contradiction.
I
So
understand.
we're not having a performance evaluation of anyone. We're simply trying to clarify some very different statements about something that should be very easy to discern if something was completed or not. So that's it. We're not having a performance evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir, I'm sure there are. Questions then regarding the,
Want me to start?
sure.
All right, so I read all 142 pages of this thing, okay? And I can tell you, I've been on the board a little over a year, okay? And I'm not that well briefed or knowledgeable to interpret all aspects of it. General stuff about improper clothing and things of that nature in the report and what the board's responsibility is, I can understand that. The thing about grades and all that stuff, I hadn't had any proper training in that. And you can look at my, I think it's in my explanation of my training. So I don't feel proper in addressing this report in a inquisitory way without someone assisting me in this review. And I think the entire peer review packet should be reviewed in its entirety, not isolated components of it. But I do commend the Ben Pope, because what I understand, I think this is the first time the county's ever had this extensive of a report, or to this degree. I think they had one in the past, but it didn't reflect 142 pages. And I see it as a measure of opportunity, and I work for government, and I said if they came to look at my peer, I'd probably find one too, but I can tell you this, it's not done, purposely or erroneously by design. So, to the chair and to the new members, with the exception of Ms. Andrews, she's probably the most well-versed person here, because she's been in that office and provided those services. And but I'm not. I can speak for myself, but I can read. And if I have something to help me understand, I can understand what I'm reading. But some of this stuff I cannot without some manual to explain it to. And I don't know if we need someone to do that to help us. I just don't know. But and so I'm asking the chair. You may be proficient in it. I'm not.
I don't disagree that there are things in this report that are beyond our scope, my scope certainly. Very technical issues. However, I found 80 to 90% of the report to be very plain speak. I found it to be applicable to any organization, especially to a government organization. I found it to be quite frankly a disappointment. These are things that, to Mr. Rutledge's point, this is 140, however many pages, and there's this many flags, and all I hear is 80% of these, and you correct me if I'm wrong, 80% of the recommendations have been made. So what I hear is 80% of this report is accurate and was deficient and has been corrected. And I find that to be an awful lot. And considering how simplistic some of these issues are, I do have questions for Mr. George about why and how some of these items had to be corrected.
Let me first say that a 100-page peer review report is normal these days. The one that was done in 2009 Hasn't been done like that in 10 years. This is normal for a report to be that big. This is normal. Don't take my word for it. Ask the Department of Revenue. But this is normal.
So this is my whole concern with this report, okay? I've admitted that I don't know nothing, based off my limited training, okay? And I assume with the exception of Ms. Andrew, the rest of you don't know much that I don't know either. So if we begin functioning, and some of these, bullet points were directed directly at the board, how responsible are you to be when you hadn't had the training? And who's to set you on the right path? And I sat here for, probably 15 months, and we didn't even have counsel here. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to understand at what level of proficiency are you or I expected to perform, because I don't do this every day. I got a job. But I agree with you, there's some components in it just straightforward, but again, I'm looking at this thing in a holistic way, okay? And I just couldn't understand how to value this report based on my responsibility, as it says in this report, to oversee a department that I hadn't had training in to do. That don't make sense to me. And if I made inquiries, I don't know how to gauge it because I don't know the true answer. Does that make sense? Like I gave the example, we did not know that a clerk in the office couldn't do the minutes. Where should I have known that with my limited knowledge?
Policies and procedures?
The
Policies and procedures?
But there are a lot of other items in here. We found out in December that and I think the commissioners also found out in November that employees within the tax assessor's office come under the authority of this board. Honest mistake, okay? The Board of Commissioners. I can do it. So then once we found out that they came under this authority, then we attempted to address the issue. Merely and simply as that, okay? And then we were advised that, getting back to the secretary, that the secretary had to be an appraiser. I didn't come in here knowing that. No previous boards knew that. Ms. Andrew, you've been on the board. Have they had appraisers do it? I don't know.
They have before.
But they hadn't been consistent with it. See? So I'm at a loss. How much knowledge am I supposed to know for I'm blamed for not knowing?
And at the time when I got here, 4.5 years ago, the chairman is now a member of the Board of Commissioners. So obviously he didn't know either, because that's the way he ran.
And this peer review is good, because now I think everybody know what they supposed to, or recommended what's supposed to happen and how it's supposed to be done. It is a clear, definitive document, or with recommendations on how it should be done correctly. Hopefully going forward, all of these recommendations can be attained, and we got a functioning office as well as the board. But I'm merely saying from my vantage point that, and I'm not throwing stones at previous boards, but I think under different administrators or different board members, I think it was their intent to do the right thing as it was mine. And how much blame should I incur? Because I didn't have the proper knowledge. That's all I'm saying.
To speak to your point, a few things. One is I have put in countless hours since I was appointed just to try to play catch up. I know and recognize there's a lot to learn. I would not have accepted this position without committing myself to learning, so I do know there's a lot to learn. I believe in the, and I may have the date wrong, but in one of the commissioners' meetings that I was reviewing, of course, they're public record, they're archived, they're recorded just as this one is. I think, and I'm not quoting verbatim, but that you advised the commissioners that the board had a plan to address these things and were simply waiting for the report.
That's what I said.
And so that's just confusing to me now if you're saying you cannot interpret the report if there had been a plan in place. So was that plan to, maybe not anticipating it was going to be this technical or what? How could there have been a plan to address it? And now it's
Well,
here.
let me address that. The concern was, I've never seen a peer review report before, okay? And I was miffed by this document right here. And again, you're correct, my statement was that. But again, do I look at this report in small incremental and take issue with it? Or do I look at it holistically, okay? My position always has been, and this report refers to it, is that everyone that's involved in the process of fair taxation should work in concert with each other. Meaning from the tax assessor, the appraiser, the tax commissioner, and ultimately the board of commissioners, okay? Because that's how the board of commissioners receive revenue to provide services for the citizens, okay? That's the way I interpret my responsibility. Those are the grounds on which I accept it. Unfortunately, I didn't go through a review process like you guys. Maybe I should have, I don't know. I don't even know what the criteria was to be reviewed. I mean, nobody knew other than Ms. Andrew what job responsibilities to do this work. So I guess it was just based on your good looks or your personality. I have no idea. But anyway, I stand by that, and you didn't hear me in the first part. Once I have knowledge of interpreting the report, then I will take a position. But right now, if I'm challenged on any particular component of this report, there's certain voids in that I don't understand.
You make a request, Ben Pope, to be present at a meeting.
They help us understand. I mean, it's just like doing an audit. I mean,
I'll make a motion for that, for council to be present at all meetings so that we stay on track.
I
No,
mean,
she was talking about Ben Pope, the one that chaired
okay.
this.
and let me ask this, can he avail himself to doing that? Is that proper procedure?
I mean, I don't think you could force him to come, but the request could be made.
Sure. I would support that, because some parts I don't understand.
Acknowledging that, I do know, though, that everyone's here, and this whole situation has occurred, and there's a new board, or new board members, all because of issues within the office. And from what I'm reading of the report, it does validate some of those issues and some of those complaints. Would you agree with me, Mr. Andrews, on that?
Yeah, I see some components in there with the administration. But if you recall, part of the concern that I heard from citizens and things of that nature, because it was all involving fair, equitable appraisals of property, okay? So that's why I'm looking at all of this report together, not this and that.
Ms. Riley, maybe you can, I read this and I understood it to be that the county is not valuing property fairly and equitably.
Right.
Did I misinterpret that?
No, you're exactly right.
Mr. George, is that your understanding of this document?
No. My understanding of that document is there were things that needed to be corrected. They were corrected. That's my understanding. And here's how you know. 2003, there are 151 appeals. It's out of 16,000. 2024, there's 171 appeals. Now, that's a direct measuring stick of what you're doing. And if you're doing taxpayers wrong, because I guarantee you if you were doing people that wrong, there wouldn't be 151 appeals. There would be 1,000. There would be 1,500 appeals. That's a direct correlation to if people are discouraged or upset about their valuation.
However, if they were undervalued across the board,
Sure.
then there's a direct correlation
Sure.
in the lack of appeals and complaints.
Sure.
And this report, as I read it, states that it is undervalued.
That's why we increased the price per square foot in 2024. And we were trying to do it systematically and not go from $48 to $110 at one time, because that would be shock value to a taxpayer. But here, because of the ratio, let me explain that to you. Ratio is done by the Department of Audits and Accounts. We have somewhere between 700 and 800 sales a year. Audits and Account takes about 175, okay? All right? They take about 175 out of 750, say, okay? And if they take, now I did this in another state, I did racial studies, so I know it very well. If you take 60% of sales in your ratio study, there's no rhyme or reason why you pick these samples, and you take 60% of it below 36%, where the actual number of that 750 sales is only 25%, then you're going to get a low ratio based on that 60%. Now, that's how it is. There's no rhyme or reason about what samples they choose for their study. But it's 750 sales, they sample about 175. And if they take 60% of it under 36%, where the actual number out of that 750 is only 25%, then you're going to get a low ratio. Now, we understood that the price per square foot has to go up based on the market. We understood that. And that's what we were doing. We went from 48 to 60, from 23 to 24. Okay? But we understand now even more, you don't want to go from 0 to 100 in 1 year, and then the market corrects itself and comes down 20%, then you're yo-yoing your values. You want to go up systematically, and then if the market corrects itself, because you don't know that, I don't know that, I don't have a crystal ball, if the market corrects itself and comes down 20%, you're on your way up to that. So you're not yo-yoing people, because if you go up to 100, okay, and then it corrects itself 20%, okay, then you're back doing all this evaluation all over again. And coming down 20%, someone may say, well, mine should have came down 30%. Mine should have came down 40%. So you systematically go up, and that's us having compassion for the taxpayer, because you don't want to go from $48 to $100 in 1 year, because that's going to add shock value. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is that little Miss Smith, who's 77, who's retired and lives in our house, she's not going to be able to afford that 48 to 100 in 1 year. She's not going to be able to afford it. Either she's going to lose her house or she's going to have to consider moving, but she don't want to move because she's been in that house for 20, 30 years. That's what happens. So you systematically go up to when the market value rises, because it may correct itself in a year. You don't know that. You don't take 1 year by itself in our business and say, that's going to be it, because it may correct itself and come down that following year.
But
You-
this is the third year,
You don't know that.
correct? This is the third year that this county has not met the ratio.
No.
So we're beyond, no? No?
32 and 22, 33, 94 this year.
Okay.
Okay? Now, we understand that the market has stayed up here. So that means we have to aggressively go up here. And that's why it's going to probably go from $60 to $110 a square foot for 2025 to address that.
How are you going to do that with half staff? Why is there half of the staff? Because you mentioned when you first started discussing this,
Right.
that you lost half of the appraisal
Right.
staff. You also mentioned that Tommy started mid-year of 2023, correct? He's an appraiser 3?
Yes.
Is that correct? What are the other levels of the appraisers? That's a pretty good jump for someone who started in 2023.
Well, no, he came from another county.
Okay,
He
okay,
came from another county.
okay. So what about the remaining
They're appraiser twos.
appraisers?
They're appraiser 2s.
Okay.
And then I have a appraiser 1 trainee.
What are you doing to develop and train those staff?
Sure, we're going to send them to courses. We're also going to do some in-house training to show them better ways to do analysis on neighborhoods. So now we have to do ratios on neighborhoods to see if there are other factors other than that $110 a square foot that need to happen. And they've never done that before, but that's something that I've recognized that needs to happen, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do neighborhood ratios. So break it down even further to neighborhood ratios for staff to do, to look at, to see if there's any other adjustments beside that $60 to $110 that needs to happen. So it's training them as we go. And in the peer review, we're 2 appraisers short. That's what they say. And we have put those, try to get funding. You know, I put in for 1 person this year. Board of Commissioners denied that. So I'm not a person who's going to sit around and cry about it or whine about it. I'm going to still do my job and still do the best that we can do with what we have to work with. So we have to pivot and do other things and other analysis so that we can have a better number of where we need to be.
What is the morale of the office and your employees?
The morale in
They
our
are
office,
half-staffed.
I'm sorry?
You mentioned they're half-staff and they're doing all these different jobs. What is their morale?
The morale is, as far as I know, we're doing our job. I don't hear complaints from them, but we're doing our job. The best that we can do with what we have to work with.
You have not heard complaints from your staff? Okay.
Question. In going over the review, I just found with having heard what you were just talking about training, the last 2 years, you've received 180 hours worth of training. But yet your staff is out of
Sure.
compliance.
Let me explain that to you. First of all, everybody's in compliance except Bill Goodman. Bill Goodman was supposed to go to class last week. Bill Goodman canceled for a personal reason. So let me explain that to you. First of all, back in 2022, I put in training requests for certain individuals, but unfortunately, let me back up. Since COVID, Department of Revenue has had a lot of personnel leave the Department of Revenue who taught classes, okay? And there are now fewer classes to be offered. There are fewer classes to be offered. But in 2022, the staff, I was going to send them up north, and they said, can you try to send us closer to home? Because our personal vehicles wouldn't make it there. Well, we don't have that issue now because we have reliable county vehicles. Kim Adams went to class the 1st of January. She's compliant, okay? But there are certain classes that they need to take and want to take, and I want them to take, that aren't offered right now. She wants to take specialized assessments. It's not offered. It may not be offered until October or November of next year. And this is, I was going to talk about that before, but I'll talk about it now. The three of you, Andrea, Ms. Riley doesn't have to go because she's taken it before, but certification of assessor course that you have to take within 160 days, okay? There are only 2 classes offered between now and June. One in March, beginning of March in Helen, Georgia, the other one in Milledgeville in Baldwin County. Now, our trainee, our appraiser, one person who came in May of last year, I had to put them in this class in Milledgeville 8 months in advance. 8 months. The reason is because, one, that's the most popular course, but 2, there are only 50 slots for that one in Baldwin. Now, there were only 45 or 30 slots for the one in Helen, okay? They're all full, and there are people on the waiting list.
Actually, the one in Helen has expanded and now has.
That's what I'm about to tell you, if you give me a minute.
Well, you just said they're all full, so.
Well, I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. Now, yes, there are spaces available, which I was going to tell you to put you 2 in Helen, Georgia. But the first thing has to happen is you have to get in the portal with the Georgia Department of Revenue. As of today, you're not in the portal. I emailed the person who handles that yesterday when I got the notification saying that I got 2 assessors that would like to go, but they're not in the portal yet. They can only get in the portal if they have your information, okay? They don't have your information yet, okay? But I emailed them to see if I can get you in there anyway. I haven't gotten an email back from this person, okay? But there are 18 slots, I have it right here, there are 18 slots left in the one in Helen, and that is in March, okay? All right, so I'm trying my best to get you 2 in that, okay? But if they don't have your information in the portal, I can't sign you up. That's all.
Okay, back to the report. Are there any other, do y'all have any questions about the report?
Oh, you have some.
I have one last question
Sure.
for you. You're the department head, right?
Yes,
So you're responsible for that department.
yes.
Are you proud of this report and these findings?
No, I think that I'm proud that we've addressed a lot of them, okay? But I'm not naive to say that is work that needs to be done. But it is work that needs to be done as far as getting some of the appraisers different type of training to address those things. But I'm happy about the things that we have already addressed.
Thank you.
Could I ask one question, follow up on that?
Sure.
Ms. George, in your opinion, do you think that you have subordinate support within your office? And I know you don't, these are professionals, at least they are registered appraisers. Are you confident that under your leadership, once you give them a directorate, that they truthfully perform that task and report to you in a true, way?
let me explain this to you about me. I'm a positive person. I'm not going to throw people under the bus. I don't believe in that. I think that certain individuals in our office have been persuaded to see more problems than solutions. And I think that some of those individuals, it's their job to find those solutions or to make those solutions happen based on their job description. Now, it's my job to train them up and to get them to a certain point, so that's not an issue, okay, at all. So I'm gonna do the best that I can do to either send them to training or to do in-house training for them, but I was taught I'm not gonna stand up here and throw nobody under the bus, even though they may have said negative things about me. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm about.
Well, respectfully, did you not just throw Mr. Bill under the bus by saying he was doing that?
No, I just totally disagree with him because I know what I saw and I know what he was doing. That's all.
And let me just say this, that's what's really confusing to me. You know, and I've seen on several occasions, Mr. George will defer to a staff member that has been given the responsibility. And from what I observed, he was confident that that staff member would perform or support whatever he's asking them to provide. And because if I was there, I wouldn't ask the person I thought he was going to say something, and I wouldn't ask them to lie. But that concerns me when you work in a professional office and you rely heavily on those personnel that have the tools to do their job, because you're not working in a place where you got micromanagement, I don't think. And those employees or employee may or may not perform the duties as instructed. And does that become self-evident in a report? And I understand it's the chief appraiser's responsibility to check some of these things, but I'm just concerned, piggybacking on yours, on what is the level of performance in the office, or, you know, what's the temperament in the office. And in order for this board, or for the office to perform properly, then I think all employees engaged have to perform their duties that they're hired to do. Whether they like the boss or they don't like me, it doesn't matter. Do your job and perform. And when the person says they don't do it, is that an admission to the boss that I didn't do it? Are they open to some repercussions from that? Or is the boss open to the repercussions of that? That's what I don't understand. And I don't know how you get around that. I mean, I could use words like sabotage, things like that, but I'm not going to use them. But that's the reason for my question. If staff isn't supporting their superior in a way that he's in giving them authority to do it, then I don't know if staff is performing their duties as they should. And again, it's the responsibility of the chief appraiser, but you can't have a staff that don't want to work for you.
Well, I agree with you almost wholeheartedly. I was referring to staff earlier, and I understood did not want to get into performance evaluations of the staff. I do think, and we bring this up, and I feel very strongly, and I will tell you, Mr. George, as I read it and I understand it, this board is responsible for the office and the personnel therein. Is that correct? Mr. George, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We are responsible. Have you come to the board asking for assistance, direction, guidance, anything regarding personnel matters
Yes.
in the past?
Yes, I am.
Yet, Mr. Andrews earlier stated that until recently, they did not know and had not been advised that they were actually responsible for the personnel in that office. Is that,
Yeah, you
that
defer
personnel
that
in
to the-
general?
The attorney, it was a memo went out with November the 5th advising the Board of Commissioners, I read it, saying it's responsibility of us, November the 5th.
Right, so, no. So before November 5th, and I'm not arguing, I'm trying to
Yeah.
clarify, you're saying that you knew the board was responsible, you say you've come to the board, but on the record, the board was not officially notified of that responsibility until November 5th of 2024.
Let me explain to you how most tax assessor offices work.
Rather than that, I would rather you answer that first, and then you can explain.
It's usually, the chief appraiser has authority over the day-to-day operations and personnel, and hiring personnel, disciplining personnel. That's what I knew to be. Okay? County attorney says it's the Board of Assessors. I did not challenge that.
Statute says that, correct?
Statute says that, but most Board of Assessors delegate those authorities to the chief appraiser. That's how it works. I can only tell you how it works.
So then we're in agreement that this board supervises you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So from a performance level then, I emailed on Monday asking a question. Today's Thursday afternoon at 5:30.
Right.
Did you respond to my email directly?
I responded in a way of getting the ball moving on what you requested. Now, you requested something about,
No, look, we'll get to that, but I asked several things.
right,
Did you respond to my email to say, sure, we'll get that, we'll get this for you, or I'll see what I can do, or anything? Because, and this is why I asked. Were my boss to email me on Monday, and I completely, maybe, farm out some of the items to other people, and I'm a government employee like Mr. Andrews, I would probably be in his office. I probably would suffer some consequences. You cannot just ignore. I cannot ignore.
No.
So I'm trying to understand this relationship that allows you to just ignore or not provide a courtesy response to an email.
no, let me first apologize for that because that's not the way I operate. What I was trying to do was decipher what you were asking and to put that in context of trying to make those things happen. So one of the things was about the agenda, which I totally passed over because the board usually doesn't do the agenda. I do the agenda and put the items on there, and if the chairman wants certain things on there, they will contact me and say, okay, I want certain things on there. I do the agenda because I know the flow of information that needs to go through the meeting.
Well, we'll do that from now on, so that's fine.
Yeah, so let me apologize for not responding, but at least I got Kim Adams to send you some of the information that you requested ahead of time.
Correct.
Because that was in your email. So please don't take that as disrespect of me not responding to your email. I was putting an action in place so that I could accommodate what you put in your email. So I apologize for that. But I don't not respond to people. That's not what I do.
Well, communication is mentioned numerous times in this report, right? And it's with one of these green tabs,
That's
correct,
correct.
saying it's been corrected.
Well, to be honest with you, it never occurred. And you can talk about it with staff, or you could talk about it with other offices. We got great working relationship with other offices. That was in there, that we don't communicate with other offices. Well, don't take my word for it. Ask the tax commissioner. Do we communicate? Ask him how our relationship is, okay? And you will probably get a different answer than what's written there. That's all I'm saying.
Any questions left about the report itself?
Let me just say a point of clarity, and you chastised me on performance review. The only reason I responded to that, because I just observed the chief appraiser deferred to a staff member for information, and that staff member, wasn't supportive in the chief appraiser.
That's a valid question.
And that's the reason why I generated that question. I did not defer off of my concern about was this employee review or evaluation. That was a concern.
Next on the agenda is county-specific items. Mr. George?
Jim Adams has conservation use.
So the ones we looked at.
For you. Let me just explain this to you, that you will see these year after year between January and April. That's when the conservation use renewals and new applications are filed. So today, March, and maybe April, you'll see applications for conservation use.
Yes, as you know, I'm Kim Adams. I do the conservation use and FLPA qualifications. You received electronic copies of the documents here. If anyone would like to review the physical folders, I do have them here for you. So I have been to all of these parcels, and I believe I have been all those parcels. For the new members, just to give you the very brief overview of what this is. This is Conservation Use Value Assessment. We call it CUVA for short. This is a benefit exemption for agriculturally active properties. When we get an application for it, that is a state standard application. We also request they sign another sheet that has the red rules to it. Now, we cannot require them to provide that because of state law, but we do request that they do, just so that they have an acknowledgement, another acknowledgement of what they're getting into, because LaCuva can cause penalties which can be substantial. I've had to send breach letters that gave me a heart attack. When you're sending someone a bill for $100,000, or, potential bill for $100,000, we're talking serious, a serious situation. So I go out to every property that has a application put in. I qualify them to make sure that what they're saying is the truth. Do they have trees? Do they have cows? Do they have hay? What is their qualified use? Do they meet the criteria? I believe that it is important to make sure that people are qualified, because every time we give an exemption, we are taking the tax burden from that person and spreading it to everyone else in the county. And so we need to be good stewards of these exemptions and make sure that they do qualify. And so these are,
I'll let down. Thank you.
and so these applications, yeah. And I'll try from now on to have, as we did this month, to have them electronically available for them. If you see anything in the formatting or more information that you would rather have on there, just let me know, because I'm here to make sure that you fully understand what's going on. Starting next month, we will start to have forest land protection. I just got a stack this large from Weyerhaeuser. And I did not have time to process them for this meeting, but you will have a lot of forest land protection for next month, as well as continuations and new and renewal applications. So did you guys have any questions about what you saw in the documents I did provide? Okay.
I did not. When y'all are.
I'm a paper person, and I do better with paper, and that's the way the board's been performing in the past, so that's why I asked to
That's
see
fine.
this. One question that
Certainly.
I posed to you earlier when
Sure.
I came on the board. There are no plats of survey, and I think one reference in this report is that, plats of survey should be used when combining properties or asking or something to that effect.
The peer review report said that, yes, we need to have a written policy for how we combine properties. We have a methodology that we use, but it has not been quantified in the policies and procedures as is appropriate. So we should have the legal criteria for how we will combine or split property written into the policies and procedures. So that's something that the Board of Assessors should write and should put into the policies and procedures.
So again, I'm getting back to my concern,
Mm-hmm.
you provide us copies of aerial photographs,
Correct.
and there are no dimensions on them, and I'm just curious, we're asked to approve based upon total acreage.
Mm-hmm.
How do we confirm that the acreage computation is correct?
The acreage computation, my apologies, has come from our system. This is the amount that they are taxed on. I've never been asked by this board or anyone to provide dimensions or anything. If that is something that the board would like to require for me to inquire about surveys, et cetera, in the future, I'll be glad to do that. I know that there are some properties out there that have never been surveyed, so that information is not available. I could take and do a methodology by using our GIS and giving an approximate based on our GIS if that is so required by this board, and I can just add it in if dimensions are needed.
So I don't know we need to go to that extent, but I'm saying when I
As long
look,
as you
every
have
time I
the
look at this
acres.
thing,
That are in there.
I got total acreage, but I don't
think
have
the
dimensions
plats
on
needed.
property.
Correct.
And I'm a kind of a numbers person, so I would check, the areas to ensure, because things happen. Right-of-way acquisitions occur, and some of these properties probably never been surveyed, like you said, and they're done by meets and bounds, and that's subject to whoever wrote the meets and bounds description. So I'm just concerned that, going forward, since we trying to put these things in proper order, and I'm familiar with other counties, how they do business, then, a legal document or recorded survey basically put any concern to whether or not proper areas are being provided for the programs. That's all. And I'm asking you, would it be your recommendation, or would it be your concern to the new board members that, we seek a policy change that would encourage or require a documented, recorded plat of survey to quantify that these areas on these requests are correct?
No, I would not. That would put an undue burden on the taxpayer for these applications that I actually would have probably looked to see if that was legal, because to my understanding, we cannot require something like that by state law. We could look into that further, but that's why I said, like, the signed red rule sheet, we cannot require that because it is an additional document. The only thing that is required by state law is the application from the taxpayer, as long as they meet the minimum acreage requirements. So that would not be my recommendation, to make them go out and get surveys, especially when it could be very cost prohibitive to someone to pay thousands of dollars for a survey just to get an exemption on their taxes. That's my opinion from my understanding of the law, but I have not been to the specialized assessment class,
So I just asked policy, but I know in other counties, they require plat of survey. And most instances, it's presented to the taxpayer that this one-time investment in the survey of your property is going to provide dividends because you're going to get a reduction in your taxes because you're in the program. So I'm just asking, that's the nuances of this. Should we be doing that so that when we take these properties, and I don't know the law, I'm just saying other counties do it, and either they in violation of the law or we may be a little not proficient in what the law allows.
I would have to ask the Department of Revenue to be sure of the legality of that. As I said, my opinion without doing further research is no, that would be burdensome to the taxpayer. But I would do anything that the board directs and any policy that they so chose to put in. But I would recommend talking to the Department of Revenue regarding that before putting in a policy
And
like
one
that.
last question.
Sure.
The cover procedures and policies allow for up to 5 acres extraction given to a family member.
Correct.
Do you require a plat of survey for that deduction?
Yes, because we need to know the exact meets and, we do not have a quantified policy for one thing, but in order to have it, we either need meets or bounds, or we need a plat. So we have a defined area that is being removed. So as I said, that's one of the things the peer review board did say is we need an actual policy, and we probably do need to quantify that better in CUVA for the split to a family member within the 4th degree of civil reckoning, along with the other requirements under the law for such a split, because it is more into, there's more to it than that. They have to build within a certain time. They have to be living in it within a certain time.
But for the chair and for the other board members, I would strongly consider that if you don't consider a plat of survey for the entire tract of land, but for the extraction of the 5 acres, a plat of survey be provided, because reading a meets and bounds description is very wordy. Unless you know how to read degrees, minutes, seconds, and all that, you're not gonna know it, and people make mistakes. So a plat of survey, I don't think it would be that cumbersome that if they were to get it for 5. So I'm just asking that you may consider that with these programs, on this program.
What color flag is that?
I wasn't deferring to that.
No, I thought that she said it was one of the findings or recommendations that we needed to
That was on
improve.
combining.
Splitting and combining property.
That's what it was.
Okay, yeah, I believe Ms. Riley had an opinion about your question,
About what?
about the survey.
Well, as Kim said, you can't really require it unless you were talking about like a 2-acre tract for a cemetery or something like that. I mean, you'd have to know where the lines were to put it on the map. So in that instance,
Well, if the splitting out for the 5 acres, maybe to simplify it a little bit, the splitting out for the 5 acres, up to 5 acres, to a family member for building a house, you could put in a requirement, I guess, for that, for how it could be split out. And that could be handled too with the general policy with splits. If the board believes that we should require a survey to be duly filed with the courthouse during, for that policy, then that would cover the CUVA as well. So I guess it more depends on what you guys want to do for that particular policy that we need to codify into our policies and procedures.
Yeah, that was just something I'd asked you in the past, and I was just, for the knowledge,
Yeah.
I had a concern about that. How do you disseminate area without a drawing and dimensions? That was my concern months ago.
We also have, all of the acreage within our system is the best information we have available. Do we find errors? Yes. Are some things never surveyed and we don't fully know what it is? Yes, but we work with the best information available to create the digest, and we use the acres that we have in that, in the WinGap computer system, and that we have had historic records on that we have going back to the 60s. So that is what we rely on for the accuracy of those acres. Do we find things that are mistaken? Andrea can attest.
Right.
We found many before, but it's the best information available to us.
But we do have our mapping company that does our mapping.
Yes.
He does send reports for what's on the acres on the digest compared to the acres that, he has and the difference. And so,
And he's very
That's-
helpful and responsive when it comes to meets and bounds. I had a significant property that I had I think it was a 30-page deed of meets and bounds this year, and I sent it to our GIS vendor. He was able to give me a visual representation to verify that nothing was wrong with the deed, and it did encompass the entire property. So we do have that resource that we're very lucky to have.
Any questions about the ones that have been presented? Did y'all have time to look at them? Mr. Andrews?
Yes,
Are you-
ma'am.
Okay. We believe we can do it as a whole?
You can approve it collectively.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve collectively all the ones that have been presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Vote all in favor of approving the conservation use applications that have been presented. Raise your hand, please. Those opposed, no. It's unanimous, so, okay. You handling the others?
Yep, conservation breach. I have here a conservation breach. I had a taxpayer, William Dennis and Susan T. Oliver, at map and parcel J5200093, who wish to breach their conservation voluntarily. I have a letter from them requesting that they have a breach and the breach amounts, and I just need a motion to say, yes, you can pay the breach penalty. And an ENR signed for it.
And for the value of the board, new members, can you explain what the penalty is?
Yes, the value, the penalty in this case is 2 times the tax savings for the life of the covenant. So it goes back to whatever part of the 10 years that they have been part of. And in this case, it was just done last year, so it will not be as significant as it could be, but it is still $1,914.21. We don't really deal with tax amounts here, but for your information, that's what this particular breach penalty is from the tax commissioner.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second, you second?
It's your second.
And package you the assignments.
Yeah. All in favor? Raise your hand. It's unanimous. Okay.
Okay, I'm still up, though. I'm also going to be presenting the approval of the mobile home digest. I was able to get this all in. We have 828 pre-built mobile homes in District 1, and we have 11 mobile homes in District 2, which is City of Gray. We have, sorry, that was 2014, or 2024. This year, it's 830 mobile homes in District 1 and 10 in District 2. The digest total for the pre-built mobile homes is $15,966,300. 313. Previously, in 2024, it was 14,250,027. NADA was run properly this year, so there was an increase. Plus, we had the removal of some very derelict mobile homes, it replaced with new ones. More were replaced than really it looks like here, because we had a significant number in Baker's Acres Trailer Park and in a few other areas come in the pre-bill. So this is the digest if anyone would like to review it.
While that's being passed around, let me just bring up a matter of concern. There's a House bill notice meeting with the Board of Commissioners at 6.
Shannon said they would, I'd asked her about it, she said they would go to a different room.
Which is gonna have to be wherever it was advertised.
Oh.
I'd asked yesterday.
They can't move it if it was advertised.
I'd be
in a
happy
certain
to yield
place.
to the commissioners.
I'm just letting you all know they may have, that's got, that, the specifics of that House bill are very particular.
Yeah.
And so we may have to pause, deal with that and then come back. Can't wrap up in 8 minutes.
Yeah, they ain't gonna wrap it up in there.
See how fast you
I
can
see.
talk.
Well, I can, if you would like to approve that for mailing.
A motion.
I just got a question.
Certainly.
Has the adjustment on the multiplier been corrected? I think you may have said that was in the review on the mobile homes.
For the multiplier factor, yes, I was able to go in there, but the issue was greater than what was in the report, because it wasn't just one multiplier factor that was out of sync. I did go in and made it so that it now was an even array.
Okay.
If we had just corrected it per the report, we would have had 2 classes with the exact same multiplier, and then we would have, and it also would have been out of sync.
Okay.
So I did go in there and correct that and create it so it's more even. We may want to look at it in the future about if we want to increase or decrease, but that's going to take more time than we had this particular year.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Motion. Okay.
Good.
Is there a motion to accept the mobile home digest?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, vote, all in favor of accepting it?
Public utility, real quick, we have a revised notice of assessment that I just need you to vote to accept. It actually is, Brian Jackson, the tax commissioner, was already aware of this, and they actually already have paid the bill. So it's just accepting that we have received this and that we're accepting this notice, revised notice of assessment.
I'll make a motion to accept.
A second.
All in favor? Okay.
And the last one I can do really quick is we had a piece of property, which is the one I indicated earlier, which was a large purchase. It was from Weyerhaeuser to Georgia Power, and it was billed as real property this year, but the state has transferred that into public utility. So I need to get an errand relief for this signed for public utility, taking it out of the regular digest with real property and placing it with the state's higher value for public utilities.
That's what I mean.
Question?
Move we approve.
Okay, second?
Second.
All those in favor? And before we yield the room to them and I guess recess, before we get too far away from it, Mr. George had jumped and we had discussed the need for the RFP for the countywide reevaluation. Is there any need to discuss that further, or are we ready for a motion vote on that?
I motion that we send an RFP out for a countywide reevaluation of all properties in the county of Jones.
I second.
All in favor?
Can I just give you 2 more items real quick? Motor vehicles you have. Motor vehicles are done every year, every month. We have a system set up with the tax commissioner's office where people are not happy with their valuations. They will come over to our office and do a motor vehicle appeal. And we'll look at that vehicle and assess it and tax the value to it. So you'll see these motor vehicles every month. So this is 2 months' worth. So I just need for you to approve the motor vehicles.
This is the one you provided us earlier.
Yes, it's
Okay.
this one right here. It's 2 pages.
Motion?
So moved.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
And one more, just homesteads. This is 2 months' worth of homesteads. Homesteads are filed between January 1st and April 1st for the current year. So this is a list of them. Pretty standard.
I think I need to not vote on that. I think my name is, my husband's name.
Okay.
Did you come of age to get the additional?
Thank y'all.
Because I assume you just didn't get your homestead yesterday.
So you'll see these homesteads every month.
I don't see it.
You don't see
Does that
that?
have to be signed?
So you don't have to say
Anywhere?
that.
Does that have to be signed?
Man, I got it. Did you pay the fee?
Say what?
Did you pay the fee?
Yes, we're on. So I can't vote.
Okay.
We still have 3 more minutes to see how far we get.
Okay.
DNR nods,
Huh?
did we do it?
What?
The last one.
For the homestead?
Yeah.
No, those are the homesteads. in there.
Right, we need a motion.
Yeah.
I can't.
Okay.
I motion that we accept and approve the 161 homestead exemption.
Wait.
Yeah.
I just have a question. I know that the factor or the way the homesteads were being calculated was not correct. I just want to make sure that that has been corrected. Okay.
Mr. Andrews? Sorry.
You want the motion? I move that we approve the 161 homestead exemptions.
And these are error reliefs. You
What?
see these?
Wait.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
These are-
Abstain, right?
these are
Kim, you got that?
Error reliefs. These correct the digest. This one's a disabled veteran to be approved. This one is a disabled veteran also. Disabled veterans are approved year-round. These are 2 boats on an account.
These require a motion and a vote? I said, do these require a motion and vote?
Well, we don't do them all.
You can do them all
Yes.
collectively.
Collectively.
When we get through.
This one is to delete a boat that was sold. This one was a boat that was sold in 2023, and this is a disabled veteran.
Right, motion?
So moved.
Two.
Second.
All in favor?
Got to go.
We have 1 minute. I don't see how we can finish. So,
Yeah, I didn't handle the other 2 in my report real quick. One I already handled, the assessor training. I'm trying to get you in the
March 3rd.
the course in Helen. So I'm in contact with the Department of Revenue to get you in the portal so I can officially register you, go there. It is March
3rd.
3rd. Okay? And that's a 40-hour course, a week-long course for you to take. I have your courses in a booklet already for you, for that course. I have it already in a binder for you. in the office for that course to give to you. I already have that set up for you. So I'll be in touch with you the next day or two. As soon as I hear from them, hopefully they'll get back to me so I can get you in that course.
Excuse me 1 second, please. Some of these are already signed by you. Were they presented already, or do I need to?
Just sign.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just sign the vote.
We are looking at that House bill guidelines to see if we start a little late, if that's gonna cause any problems. So y'all,
Okay.
let's just keep
Let's
going.
get-
The next one is the updated policies and procedures.
Let me make an announcement on that. If you are here for the House Bill 581 meeting, that is still in this room and moving forward just as soon as we finish the business of the Board of Tax Assessors, okay?
This is the current one that we have. Last put something updated in November. And I have 5 or 6 of them to give you, to update them. 2 pages. Some of these things we just do, we just need to put it in writing. So we do.
These were revised November 19th, is that, or is this the
Yeah,
revised
there was
version?
something revised in it November 19th, yes.
And that's what's in this one?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, I can read them off to you. The first one is, under no circumstances shall the chief appraiser or any member of the appraisal staff change property characteristics, land schedules, and arrive at a property value to mirror a recent fair market sale or land.
Where are you?
On this right here. Okay.
Okay, these are the changes.
These are the changes.
Okay.
Without a thorough analysis or evaluation of surrounding properties, in other words, no sale chasing. The next one, Jones County Board of Assessors reviews the mobile home values and approves the mobile home digest by January 10th of every year. Jones County Board of Assessors submits mobile home digest to the tax commissioner by January 10th. Jones County appraisal staff will inspect every property that files an appeal within 45-day period after the assessment notice has been sent out to that taxpayer. The Jones County Board of Assessors sends a notice of settlement conference to all taxpayers within 45 days of receipt of an appeal to Superior Court. Jones County Board of Assessors shall post the agenda 24 hours prior to the meeting. Jones County Board of Tax Assessors will make preliminary copies of minutes available for public inspection 48 hours after the meeting. And error relief, not on digest, are necessary methods to officially communication between the Tax Assessor's Office and the Tax Commissioner's Office. E&R NOD can be created for any reason in order to correct the submitted digest. E&R/NOD can be created for many reasons, including correcting values, information from the submitted digest, correcting ownership, information from the submitted digest, correcting mailing address, establishing the end of an appeal so that full billing can occur, adding value which was missing from the submitted digest, removing value from an account due to new information. E&R should be processed throughout the month and presented to the Board of Assessors for approval or denial at the next meeting. E&R NOD should have detailed reasons as to what type of correction is needed along with the exact change in value. Supporting documentation should be attached to the NOD paperwork for approval. Copies of the NOD and supporting documents should be retained as attachments to the minutes for the meeting in which they were approved. After approval, ER and NOD should be given to the Tax Commissioner's Office at the end of next business day.
So this is the first we're seeing this, and I understand it's a policy that was already in place, and these are simply updates, but I'm not certain that we don't need to maybe table this to the next meeting so that we have an opportunity to
Sure.
review it.
No problem.
Because we will be adopting or re-adopting the whole policy, so is that,
Nope.
And
do we need a
No
motion
problem.
for that?
if you all want to do that, you would motion to postpone to the next meeting.
Okay, so is there a motion to postpone then?
I make a motion to postpone.
I'll second.
No problem.
All in favor?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
You've handled 11.
Next was the, oh, you already approved the RFP, so.
Right, do we have time to start citizen
Let's
comments?
keep going. yeah.
Okay. Next is the opportunity for citizen comments.
And I think you all voted to limit that to 2 minutes, right?
That's correct.
Chairwoman, do you want me to keep time, please?
Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Mickey Parker, 730 Legacy Farms Road, and God bless this new board. A significant number of violations of law and policies documented in the performance review are so egregious that you have to question all Jones County tax values and you, as well as the operation of the office itself. This is a condemnation of the previous board and the current tax assessor's office. That is the only way you can read it. And I stand here guilty. My email is so hot, my hard drive can't hardly stand it because this is going out. It's a public document, and I am burning my email, sending it out, and these people understand it. They understand it. And in a failed attempt to raise the sales tax ratio in 2024, the chief tax assessor, with the approval of the board of directors, illegally increased the fair market value of 9,400 parcels by $139 million. Two assessors in the department, a former assessor and a member of the Board of Equalization, have all publicly stated it was an incorrect process, making it illegal. The performance review even states that the office was sales chasing, which is illegal. I'm requesting that you order the tax assessor's office to reverse the 9,400 illegal adjustments back to their prior market values. I'm also quoting, the homesteads were found to be calculated incorrectly for those 65 and older per the performance review. I am requesting that this be corrected immediately. We have senior citizens who are overpaying their taxes. Every citizen in this room and in this county has overpaid their taxes in 22, 23, and 24 because of the $1 million tax break given to the 21 public utilities. Is that my 2 minutes? Okay. May I be permitted to hand a document?
Of course.
You certainly can,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
I'm going to hand you, I'm sorry, my comments along with a document which is what is infuriating the citizens of this county.
He's just handing, yeah, we need
Thank
to
you.
move it on. While you pass that out. I'm getting it.
Sure, sure.
Is there another person that wishes to make any comments?
Stan King.
Yeah, we have, Mr. King is on the agenda, but is there anyone else that wishes to make public comment? Mr. King, then?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll be real brief. My name is Stan King. I represent a reevaluation company called GMAS. We've been in business, incorporated since '08, but everybody in the company is either prior Department of Revenue, Department of Audit Appraisers, or Chief Appraisers, or worked in the Assessor's office. So brought cards with me. I helped and assist with the audit appeal for the 03-23 digest. But that's all I'll answer any questions you have, but just go to our website. Hope to answer any questions you might have about us and what we can provide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other comments. We'll move to the new business. First item under that is the status of the Board of Assessors office personnel. I had added that to the agenda.
Yes. What would you like to know as far as that? Everybody's working. We have,
No, I'm sorry. Being that there's a new board and
Oh.
we are responsible for the personnel, and we're obviously playing catch-up, we do not have access to personnel records and those things that have not just, been a matter that I could YouTube look. So I think that it would be prudent for us to obtain personnel records. There's been other board items that have transpired, any type of employee action that's been taken so that we can move forward as a board. I think it's common knowledge that the office is in 2 different locations.
Yes, it is.
That certainly cannot continue, so I think this board has to address some of the issues, and before we can do that, collectively, we need to get that information.
Sure, I
Does
can-
everybody agree?
I can get that to you.
So if we perhaps send an email to you with a list
Sure.
of what we need, and if we're missing anything, you let us know.
Sure, not a problem,
Okay.
not a problem.
Could I brief you, Madam Chairman, on one item? We, last year, the employees were under the understanding that they fell under the personnel manual for the employees under the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners. They did not have a personnel manual. So the board last year voted to adopt the Board of Commissioners Personnel HR Manual for the Board of Tax Assessors. In that document, it clearly sets requirements for grievance, remediation of conflict, and things of that nature. But as I understand it, prior to that, again, they assumed that they fell under the auspices of the Board of Commissioners. Until that was clearly defined, or once it was defined, they did not have a personnel manual. So that action was taken, and instructions was given that all terminology referring to Jones County Board of Commissioners be corrected and reflect Jones County Board of Tax Assessors. Okay.
Can we make the announcement just one more time? If you have just arrived and you're here for the House Bill 581 meeting, that is in this location. We are trying to wrap up this meeting, and we'll start that in just a moment, okay?
I think along those lines, we have been looking for bylaws, any handbooks for the office, and perhaps the minutes, Ms. Kim, for 2024, if we can get those. Unless, we just may be overlooked on, do y'all
Yeah,
have bylaws? for
there's an
the-
appraiser procedure manual, APM.
For
But-
this
but
board, bylaws for this board.
That's
Just the policies.
just the policies and procedure manual.
Okay.
That's what serves as
There's no
that.
bylaws. Okay. Mr. Rutledge, you had the next item of the dates and times.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we consider moving the meeting times for this Board of Assessors to 5 o'clock. For people that have work and any citizens that want to attend it, they wouldn't have to take off work to attend.
I understand.
It's already a sacrifice to serve on the board, but missing pay makes it even more.
You want to amend that so the meetings don't go past an hour? I'll just get.
Yeah,
No, ma'am.
but yeah,
So to start at 5, that
5 o'clock,
is.
yeah.
I have no problem with that.
Because that's how other boards.
I have no problem with that.
All right, so a motion to have the board meetings on the same day of the month, but just to begin at 5 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock. Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. The next item I added, board accessibility, communication, and transparency. From reading this report, well, I'll just say, in doing my due diligence for this position, you cannot locate who is on the board. It's not posted on the website. There's no way to contact people. Personal emails are being utilized rather than government emails, although records are supposed to be maintained and governmental business should be conducted under governmental email accounts. I think that there are transparency concerns. We've heard them, I've seen them previously from the public. And so to improve upon that, I believe, and I've requested, and I believe Ms. Riley and Mr. Rutledge have as well, to be set up with county email addresses, that all the board members be listed on your website, that those
They are
email
listed.
addresses, the
Not
email
the
addresses
email
be added to it, that the public knows, your office knows that there's no doors, but we have an open door policy. That's my policy. Open door.
I asked IT the other day when you put that in your email for a county email for you all, and I was told today by the IT person there was a snafu
He's working.
in what he was getting that done, but he's getting it done. But I did ask for him, for you.
Thank you. So if y'all would like it as well. These communications are subject to Freedom of Information Acts, just like anything else, and I really don't care for having to go through my Gmail account by virtue of subpoena. And so I believe that best practices need to be established somewhere, and so that's where I'd propose to start. Any discussion issues with that? Okay. And I believe you added, Mr. George, my request to receive documents that are available. Didn't know if there was a reason or a problem with it that you added it.
No, I wanted you to vote on it so that everybody would be on the same page of accepting that. I didn't just want it to be you wanting it and not the other board members. That's all.
I don't believe a vote's needed for that. I could be wrong.
Well, I want it.
I believe we can receive the documents however we need to receive them. I mean, it's 2025. Getting them in advance and looking at them saves time, public sitting here. I think it's the best use of time. And hey, let me say, I've got a written calendar here, so I am old school
I
for
don't
some
have a problem.
things.
I don't
But
have-
that's just mine.
Just a point of discussion. A lot of times, like when Kim presents hers in the past, we found a lot, I know personally, I have found quite a few errors when you looking at it. I have a life. I'm not gonna tell you I'm gonna look at that prior to these meetings because I work and I have a family, I have grandchildren, I have stuff to do. Unless they're gonna pay us for the time that we spend to do that extra, I'll do it. But if we're gonna do it prior to the meeting, I'm not sure I'm going to take.
Okay, but they don't have to be uniform. That was just me.
Okay.
I believe I requested it and said, "Is anybody else who may want it?" So,
Yeah, that's not a problem.
all right. As far as this personnel request too, going back to that, so I think we need to put a timeline on this, and I think that needs to be addressed in a whole separate meeting. And so, what is today? Thursday, February the 6th. If we can receive the requested documents, and we'll get you a list before noon tomorrow. If we can have those documents by close of business next Tuesday, I understand Ms. Shannon may have to help with that as well, but if we can get those, and do we need to perhaps set a special meeting to address the personnel issues?
Could I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
And it's to the attorney. Receiving, highly sensitive personnel records that includes medical and things of that nature, is there a proper way those things should be dispersed so that they're not, publicized, maybe in a controlled setting, from the HR person? Because I don't want to get a person's personnel record through it.
I have medical.
Yeah, and that personnel record, it's got medical and everything in it, okay? So,
We
I
can,
mean, we
can we
could-
specify?
I mean, I could check it out.
Performance
Right,
reviews.
when we do the list, we can just specify specifically performance reviews, job descriptions, performance reviews, performance evaluations.
Yeah, that'd be nice,
Reprimands,
but-
that kind of thing, but we
Okay.
can specify no medical, no
That's what I
sensitive
want to make
information.
sure that's
Yeah, we can-
retracted from
yes,
their
sir.
personnel record, because I don't want to see that kind of stuff.
Right, we can specify that. So, do we need to set a special date to address these items? Is there a motion?
Yeah, do we know what date? 2 weeks? Or,
So let me ask you this, so I understand to review the personnel information. Is it gonna want action, or it's just to familiarize yourself with the personnel?
The personnel documents to familiarize ourselves with the personnel, the current status, et cetera. Especially set meeting to address personnel issues and perhaps, yes, take action based on the information that we review once we catch up to speed and whatever is presented. I would anticipate or expect or maybe even want to hear from the employees on that day that we set.
Okay, I'm asking the attorney, if that's received in this hearing, does it become public record?
Yeah, so any evidence has to be presented in the open meeting, and then you all could deliberate on anything that you've heard if you feel like there's action needed in executive session.
That's what I thought. So if we're
Yes.
gonna expose people's,
You wouldn't get
Public.
medical records or anything.
I understand that,
if
but I'm
there's-
saying, to
like
be
if-
fair to the employees.
If somebody's been written up and that needs to be brought to you all, yes, it's done in an open meeting.
Well, let me ask you this. Would it be proper if there are any disciplinary actions that are current? Because if they are in the past, what relevance are they?
That's for you all.
I'm just trying to ascertain that. I mean,
To demonstrate a pattern.
But all of that
No,
would
I
come
don't know.
before you in an open meeting, yes, sir.
yeah.
I mean, I sat in the room previously while personnel issues were addressed, and it was my understanding that the board has to take personnel action. So theoretically, any personnel action by anyone would have been taken by the board in an open meeting, right? I mean,
I'm
unless
just totally
incorrect.
confused. Are we doing employee evaluation, or you just familiarize yourself with the employee? And if that's so, and I asked, my original question is this being reviewed for action to be taken?
There are personnel, what I'm saying, there are personnel issues that are ongoing. There's personnel findings in the report. The office is physically divided, that's known. I've heard from the public that they come here, then they have to go to the Civic Center. There are issues that were previously addressed with the old board, and there are issues on the table that I believe we cannot address without having the records first and then meeting to discuss what our perception is, what my perception is, my understanding of it is, the patterns, and address this. We are in charge of that office, and we're not there. I don't know all the people in that office, but I want to learn those persons, their positions, their relationships, their morale, their organization, the lack of organization, the structure. I want to know what time people go to work. I want to know what time they get off work. I want to know why, as Mr. Andrews said, you turn around in meetings and ask your staff a question and they give a different answer. And I think that until they come sit at these tables and answer questions from this board who's responsible for them, there's no way to know. There's no way to get to the bottom of that or to answer your question about why that occurs. You work for the board. We need to address you. correct?
Correct.
Have you had a performance evaluation?
Yes,
Did the-
every year.
When did, okay, see, I would like to have access to those.
Not a problem.
Because otherwise, we cannot manage you or the office, correct?
Sure.
So by saying that, I hope I'm answering the question. Want to obtain all the information, meet. I do believe, if it's allowable, that the office staff attend that meeting, having time to address and review documents, have the opportunity to speak to the staff and answer questions, and then if it appears that there's a need to, then we could go to an executive session and take any action that's necessary. I don't know what would be necessary without looking at it. Is that a fair answer?
Yes, but I thought it was a protocol where evaluations are done. And so what we're doing is changing the time of the evaluation? Or
No,
is it
sir,
an
we're not we're not conducting, this is not a performance evaluation. This is to address personnel issues, the office issues, for our benefit as a new
Okay.
board.
Maybe once you get it started, I can understand it.
Okay.
Right now, I'm in a fog, I don't quite understand it. I mean,
We'll try to clarify
just
it.
clarify it.
Yes, sir. So do we have a motion for a special session and a potential date?
The 20th, maybe?
The
That'd be 2
February the
weeks.
20th? And since staff may need to be present, I do think we need to do that before 5 o'clock.
Be here?
It's 4 o'clock,
4 o'clock.
enough time? So 4 o'clock on February the 20th for a session. And Mr. George, just to clarify, we will get you a list by noon tomorrow. We'll make clear what, to Mr. Andrews' concern and fair concern, what we're not asking for and should not be included. Have that to you by noon tomorrow. We'll request it to be received by close of business. If that needs to be picked up to avoid electronic dissemination, we can do that. And is there a motion for a meeting to address it?
Maybe a little bit late that day. I don't.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I'm here today. My one meeting, but.
I
you know,
understand.
I don't get out of school until after 4.
Understand.
Make a motion for the call meeting on the 20th.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. No other
coordinate
agenda, I'm sorry?
I'll coordinate that with Shannon.
Okay. There's no other items on the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All right.
Oh, let me